the new IT. The new IT. What are we talking about today, Brad? What's new in IT? Oh, wait.
Well, there's lots new in IT, so I mean, that's changing every day.
Yeah.
But in terms of today, our topic is contract or direct hire. What should you really do? As somebody in the IT field, is it better for you to go contract or is it better for you to be a direct hire?
Well, cool. So to start with that, what are we talking about? And I know anybody listening to the show probably understands that, but I want to talk about it for a second. What's the difference between a contract and a direct hire? What does that even mean? Can you kind of give us so we kind of know where we're going here?
Absolutely. So a contract is basically a position where it's a set term. So you could have a contract for 6 months, you could have a contract for 9 months, even a year, or even up to 2 years. So it's something that the company plans on, and that's something that they say, okay, we need somebody for this amount of time, but we don't want somebody on our payroll, so we're going to make it a contract position. So that's what a contract is. From a direct hire standpoint, that's where you are going onto their payroll. It's something that is an expense for a company. So they are growing. They're looking for people. They want somebody to be part of their family. They want to be able to create that culture with them. So they want somebody who they can put on their payroll.
Cool. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy,
So,
right?
In the IT world, it seems to me for many, many years now, contract work has been very a lot. There's a lot out there, contract work. It's kind of, and I personally believe that's only going to be more and more. Is that how you feel?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially now with the gig economy, so many companies actually utilize contractors. Most people don't even realize that. So, yes, I think we are going to see it more and more, and I think you're going to see more project-based work. I mean, primarily that's where we deal with a lot of our people is more on that contract side because they're specialty niche people who focus on certain software that they're only needed for 6 months. They're only needed for 9 months, and then that's it.
So we talk about contract work. A lot of times there's a lot of money in contract work. There's a lot of, you can potentially make more money as a contractor than you can as a direct hire. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, you actually can make more money that way. But some of the things that people don't realize with being on a contractor, depending on the position or the company you work for, they may pay your taxes. They may have you as like a W-2 on their payroll, but they also may not. So you need to take that into consideration. Most of the time, it generally doesn't happen that way. So you're being paid as like a 1099 contractor. So you have to take that into consideration when you're going through your salary expectations. You need to understand that that's not part of it, that you're responsible for your own taxes.
Interesting. So is that why if it's the same job, so this company hires a person, this company gets a contractor, why is it that a lot of times the contractor will make more money? Why is that? Why is there more money for a contractor than somebody that's dedicated to your company that says, yes, I'll be here for the long haul? That seems like it's a negative for the person to be a part of your company.
Seems kind of counterintuitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the biggest reason why contracting is so big is because having a contractor is an expense. It's something that you can write off from a business perspective. So it's easier for companies to be able to hire contractors, whereas from a W-2 standpoint, an employee or a W-2 employee is now
there's a lot more headaches.
There's a lot more headaches. Let's say somebody doesn't work out or something, they're causing havoc. You have to jump through more hoops to be able to get rid of that person, whereas being a contractor, you can say, hey, you know what?
It's
sorry,
like
this doesn't work.
The difference between being married or having a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Exactly.
Is that it?
I wouldn't even say like married. I would say the difference between married and being single.
Oh, because a single person can go out with whoever, whenever, right?
Exactly.
Gosh, that sounds kind of slutty, though. I'm sorry.
Just a little bit.
Well, interesting. So does that mean, to me, it sounds like, why not just do contracting?
I mean, lots of people do. I mean, there are people that we work with that have been doing contracting for 15, 20 years. That's just what they do. That's what they're used to. That's what they know. But I also advise people who are new to IT or new in their field, it's a great way to get started. It's a great way to get some
As
some
a contractor?
projects- As a contractor, it's a great way to get some projects under your belt to say, "Hey, I know what I'm doing," and then through contracting, you can actually find out what you're really passionate about too.
So, I understand from the point of view of the person wanting to hire people that contracting, I don't have to worry about insurance or, packages, all that stuff. But on the other hand, if I'm a person that wants to get hired, those things have a lot of value. I mean, getting insurance and 401ks, you don't get any of that stuff as a contractor.
You don't, and that's where understanding that and knowing that, and when you're giving your hourly rate, those are things that you need to take into consideration.
So at that point, are you really making more money as a contractor? If you put in the money that maybe the company would put in your 401k with you, insurance is getting so crazy expensive now that's a big deal. I mean, that could be $3,000 more on your income if you get hired.
Yeah.
So
Again, I mean,
I don't know where I'm going with that other
Right.
than makes you go
It does, and I see where you're going with it. But quite honestly, like companies they understand that and they know that. So they're, again, it's the added benefit of they have a set allotment for budgeting for contracting. So they know what to expect, and it's not as big of a deal. But when you are a W-2 employee, you're taking a lot of that risk on the company and making sure that you're paying for that. So you're more of a, I don't want to say liability, but you're almost like a liability to the company in that regard.
a liability.
And that's probably not the right word, but you know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, so interesting. At first, when we first started talking about this, I thought kind of, well, it's a slam dunk. I've been doing consulting and contract work for over 15 years.
Yeah. So
And I love it. And so to me, it's a no-brainer. But insurance got expensive. Self-employment stuff it's harder when you're self-employed, even if you're making good money. So I mean, I don't know. I would never go back to that. I probably wouldn't just be a IT person somewhere. That's just not my thing now.
Right.
But there's still some pros and cons. Can we talk about that for a minute? So what are kind of let's talk seriously about pros and cons. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So pros and cons when it comes to getting hired.
Yeah.
Let's say you're getting hired. What are the pros and cons? I mean, we kind of are touching base, but I want to kind of draw the line here. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on your opportunity. I mean, from a direct hire standpoint, or from being on a W-2, part of bringing in and being on somebody's payroll, there's lots of benefits like growth opportunities. So being able to be in
Move
there,
around in the company.
exactly. So you have
Consultants
that opportunity.
don't usually do that.
They don't get that opportunity.
Contract work is just that. You one and done. You're in and out.
Exactly. So that's a big one. Being part of the culture that they have there.
You're part of the family.
Exactly. You're ingrained into what they do. So that's definitely a good one. You get more value out of it, and you feel like they give you a little bit more loyalty because you are part of their team and they want to take care of you. Whereas contracting, it seems like you're a little bit more expendable. And then overall, it could potentially save more money it may appear that you're saving more money from that vantage point, but in the long run, if you only need somebody for a short term, it's better for you just to be on a contract basis.
Right. So what are the cons? That sounded like those are a lot of pros.
That can be a pro and a con. Again, I mean, it just depends on your needs. If you're a smaller company and you get some business and you only need somebody for 6 months.
I mean cons for the potential person, the person getting hired.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you think the pros are? You said kind of the pro. I mean, all those things you said I think are pros. What's a negative to getting a job? What's the negative there?
well, it just depends on really where you want to go. What happens if you start with a company?
If you're a freewheeler and you don't like
Right.
being tied down and you love the freedom of jumping from thing to thing,
Exactly.
and if you love the fun of doing different stuff,
Trying new things.
yeah, doing different stuff all the time, then that would be a negative. That would
Exactly.
be a con for sure because you don't get much of that. You're tied down to the company.
Think about the whole married single analogy. It's like you're getting
ball
tied
and
down.
chain.
Exactly. And that's really what it is at the end of the day.
Man, we're going back.
You never know what you're getting into when you become a direct hire onto their payroll. You may think that the job is going one way, but maybe the company pivots, or maybe they may ask you to take on a different role that you may not necessarily like.
Right.
You never know.
You can't just jump ship and go to the next thing.
Exactly.
It's not that easy once you get hired.
Well, especially if you're maybe 3, 4, 5 years into your career.
Into it, yeah.
You're most likely going to say, well, I have job security, so I'm just going to continue down this path.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep with it. And that's where we get so many people that hate their job.
Exactly. And then you may not even like it. And then you hate going to work and you hate what you do.
So there's a little more risk as a consultant or contract work as far as, it's not as stable, but there's also a lot of reward. Yeah, if you do it right. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, working with staffing agencies, they'll always keep you busy.
Mm-hmm.
We have people that we've worked with for 3, 4, 5 years.
So that's a key.
Absolutely.
That's a key. If you're going to go out consulting, you should have somebody in your back pocket that's what the headhunter for you.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So what are pros and cons as a consultant or as a contract work? What are the cons? We've kind of talked about the pros.
Yeah, we talked about it. I would say for the cons side of things, I would say you don't have that job security like you would, being a direct hire. So
got to jump around from company to company, which to some people that's not a con. That sounds exciting and fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And kind of like I talked about earlier, if you're just starting out, I mean, it may be a little bit difficult to find positions that you really like. So you may end up doing short-term contracts and you may just get burned out of it. So that's part of it.
Interesting. Wow. Gosh, again, like I said, I kind of felt like it was a no-brainer that, hey, it's a drop-down. Contract work is the way to go. There's so much money in it. But I think it also depends on the person's personality, would you say?
I would think so. I mean, people that do contracting, they get into it almost by chance, and they end up loving it. So it isn't for everybody, but if you like that job stability and just the if you don't like change, then don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I got laid off is the reason I started. I mean, had my corporate IT job and got laid off many, many years ago and doubled my income consulting, doing contract work that year, and went, oh, wow, whoa, this is cool. Because doubling my income, that went a long way for 401k and all that stuff. I could create my own at that point. Insurance wasn't a big deal.
Absolutely. And that's where I said, I mean, me personally, I would rather be, if I were in IT and doing IT, I would definitely be consulting, and I would be on the contract side, because call me crazy, I want to make sure that if I fail, I want it to be upon me. I don't want to have to deal with a company that possibly fails. I would rather have it be on me.
A lot of layoffs.
Exactly.
Went through lots of layoffs. I went through 12 layoffs in a company. I was there almost 8 years. In IT, you get the list. You get the list of everybody that's getting laid off that day, a couple days before. Sometimes you're walking around, you're like, oh crap, I feel bad about Fred. They're not going to be here in 2 days.
Exactly.
But the day I came in and I didn't get the list, that means you're on the list if you don't get the list.
Exactly. That's not a good thing.
That's not a good thing.
So let me ask
crap.
you this.
And my buddies are looking at me funny. I'm like, oh, crap.
You're like, oh, no.
Dang it.
I know what
I'm
that
on
means.
the list. And the boss man comes up. Hey, can I talk to you in my office? Dude.
Really?
No.
I got a family. I got a sport.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Yeah, we love that. I swear I wouldn't do that again.
Right. And you learn, and those are things, and that's your journey, and that's how you know what works best for you.
Yep.
So from a business standpoint, do you hire contractors, or do you work with just direct hires?
Oh, that's a great question. I use contractors. Okay. I absolutely use contractors. And so I have a couple businesses. We talked about that before.
Yep.
And one of them, it's almost the whole company is run as contract work. The whole company. There's nobody that is a employee. We're all contractors, including
awesome.
me.
Wow.
And as CEO of the company, I just give my time, but as the consultant, I get paid.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. It was brought to me by a very good friend that does a whole lot of finance stuff. And so my other company, though, I have employees, the IT services, and for what I do, I hire guys that want that.
Yeah.
That want to have this stable job, and then I take care of the contracts. And so we still do. They end up doing. I still end up doing it, but they are my employees, and they have W-2s and payroll and
That's
and
the way
all
to do
that
it,
stuff. So it's kind of a hybrid. So two different places that I kind of float both things, and there's a space for both of them.
Oh, absolutely.
Because some people do, because as a consultant or a contract work, you do have to have a little bit of business savvy. It's not just about, you kind of own a business.
Yeah. And what most people that start in contracting don't realize is that 9 out of 10 times you are a 1099 employee. So, yes, you're an employee, but again, you're responsible for paying your own taxes.
Yeah,
you're
gotta
responsible for
understand
finding
that.
your own insurance. You're responsible for all of that. So, it does take a little bit of different approach to say, oh, okay.
You have to be business savvy. It's not just about your work at that point. That's one thing as entrepreneurs and being a part of a lot of entrepreneur groups and stuff. Somebody has a great idea. I want to start this business because I'm really good at this thing. They don't realize being good at this thing is one thing, but running a business is a completely different thing. And as a consultant contractor, you are running a business, whether you like it or not. That is kind of what you're doing.
Exactly. And I
So
don't know.
you need to think about that.
Exactly. And I don't know if we've tied into this before, but that's kind of how I got my start in staffing and recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
I was positioned to be a 1099 employee, and I started looking at it and saying, I'm essentially my own company. Why am I working for somebody else? And that's how I got my start.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that, like you said, the sky is the limit. I mean, you can do a lot. I started out a single contractor, IT person, and then quickly had too much work that I couldn't do it all myself, and I had to start hiring people, and that was cool.
It is.
And I found that I had a knack for the business side, and actually loved the business side even more than the technology side, and it grew from there. So I don't know. It's been good for me. The cool thing with contract work is you make it what you make it.
You really do, and it's totally up to you, and that's your
nobody can
success
lay
is your
you
success.
off.
Exactly.
They can stop your contract, but then you go to the next one. You're not.
You know what? We live in a day and age where IT is everywhere and it's in everything. Mm-hmm. So if you lose a contract, you find a new one.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Anyway, it's cool. We're kind of. It's funny because I totally can see why certain people need to just have a job, and that's great. But the future, and this is the new IT, don't you think the future is going to only go more and more contract?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I see. I see it all the time. And that's where you do have your old school companies that do want those people. But for the most part, yes, we're seeing more contracting now than we ever have.
Ever have.
It
just makes sense.
It does.
It saves the company quite a bit of money in all of those benefits. And let's face it, the headache of having to hire and go through all of those hoops and HR and blah,
Absolutely.
blah, blah.
You just hit the nail right on the head, and that's where I was going with it next is being as a contractor, you have, like, companies don't realize this, but they have so much more power because they now have the opportunity to say, you know what, John Doe over here who's harassing Sally, we can now get rid of him because he's on contract, and we don't have to worry about anything. Mm-mm. We don't have to worry about any lawsuits. We don't have to deal with any of that. Done, gone.
So, do you think, with all that said, and and I think I know the answer to this from your standpoint, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think there'll come a time when IT is just a consulting? Do you think there's always going to be, even in the new IT and in the future, a place for a hired employee in the technology part of their company.
I do. I think you do still have companies that want people on their payroll and want to build a culture and to build something. So I do think that you will have that. However, I think the majority is going to go to contracting. I think that's just what it is, and that's where we're going.
Yeah, and we folks out there in the industry, in the jobs and stuff, you should probably be thinking about that.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where it's my job as a recruiter and a staffing recruiter to make sure that I find those positions and then find the best people for that job.
I've got so many friends that have been through this. I had a good job at so-and-so company, and they brought in the contractors and got rid of our department.
Yeah.
I've heard that many times, and I think that's the future. That's going to be more and more rather than less and less.
I agree. And I mean, if we had to break it down in numbers, I would say it's probably going to be like a 70-30 ratio. I think you're going to see a lot more of that contracting.
Interesting. Just 30% hires. And we've talked about this before. I think IT is going to become more like project management in the future.
Oh, absolutely.
The hired IT folks are going to be more about moving the IT projects around and working with the consultants.
Well, and it's like what you said before, and we've said this in past episodes. IT has evolved where people understand technology now more than they ever have. Your sales departments, your marketing, your operations, they all understand technology and they understand what they need out of it, so they can now come in and say, you're now part of our organization, so this IT person is not necessarily the end all be all with technology. You now have to interact and engage with these other departments, and you need to be able to do 100%. It in a great way.
Yep, agreed. Wow, cool. This was not as cut and dry as I thought it would be, though.
No.
This is interesting, but keep watching the future, folks. Be ready for that shift. I mean, it's coming. We've all seen it, and it's only going to become more. I think that's a pretty good 70-30. I think that's a pretty good.
I think that's where we're going.
Yeah.
You're going to have your mainstay companies, your big companies who say, no, we need this. We want them to be part of our team. So it's never really going to go away.
Right.
But it's just going to be more on a limited capacity.
Of course, when the singularity hits, then it'll be a whole new ball game.
Yeah, you lost me on that one.
I'm talking 5-10 years. I'm talking 10 years. In 10 years, this is going to be an interesting space. The technology space, I don't know. We'll see what it looks like. All right, folks. Any last words?
No, if you need help in your job search, we'd be happy to help you. Other than that, no.
Awesome. Well, you've been listening to The New IT. We will see you next time.